So we are finally at the last step, the post-production. So here are my 3 rendered images in Photoshop. This is the sunny one. Here's the night version. And here's the cloudy version. Okay, I'm gonna start with the sunny image here. First I'm gonna duplicate the layer, just so I have unmodified copy at the bottom. Now I'm gonna use the curves tool to bring up the contrast a bit. Make it brighter, more exciting. Okay, something like this. I want to try and make the sky a bit darker. There are 2 options for this. I can use the image adjustments and replace color. I'm just shift clicking on the blue areas to add them to my selection. Okay. And I'm not too happy about this pure blue background. I want to add some clouds or something like that. So I'm going to go to a Google image search and I'm going to search for, let's say, sky. I'm going to search for images larger than 2 megapixels. And let's see if we can find something interesting. Alright, let's try this one. I'm gonna copy it, go back to my Photoshop and paste it. Right. So how do we get the sky instead of this blue area here? We're going to use the alpha channel. Go to channels here, Control plus click on this alpha 1. Go back to layers, select your upper layer and press Ctrl J to duplicate only the selection. Alright. You can hide this one and you have only the building visible. The building, the environment, everything except the sky. Okay. So I'm gonna adjust the size of the sky. I'm gonna bring it up like that. And I'm gonna make the sky a bit brighter. And maybe play with the hue and saturation a bit. Slightly less saturated. Right, that's fine. Let's merge it down so both layers are combined. Just press Ctrl E for this. And let's duplicate the layer and play with the color balance a bit. I want to make the midtones and highlights a bit warmer. And the shadows a bit colder. Okay. Let's use the curves again. make the green colors a bit brighter. So what I'm going to do is a little trick. I'm going to duplicate the layer. I'm going to use the black and white option here. So in this black and white, you can play with how much the colors affect the end results. So I'm going to bring my greens and my yellows up to make them much brighter. Okay, like that. I'm going to bring the blues down. Maybe reds as well. Okay. And now I can use this layer by blending it with the luminosity option, like that. Okay, so the effect is much too strong. I'm gonna bring the opacity down, perhaps like 27%. And you can see the green areas are slightly lighter now. Okay, let's try 25. And merge down. All right. So another thing I want to do with this image, I want to sharpen it up a bit. So I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to duplicate this layer. I'm going to use the high pass filter. Let's try 0.7, 0.6. Okay. And now we can use the blending modes to use this high pass as a sharpening mask. So this is with soft light and this is with hard light option. Okay, so nice and crisp with hard light, maybe even too much. Let's use the soft light. Right. Okay, so I think these shadow areas are a bit too dark. I'm gonna try and brighten them up with the dodge tool. Actually. Alright. Set it to shadows. Set exposure to something low. And just brighten up the front areas here. Just to make the shadows a bit weaker. Okay. Maybe let's boost the midtones as well. Let's go in and boost the flowers a bit. Right. So let's try and add some vignetting. Use the lens correction for this. Okay. First I'm gonna copy and paste just to get rid of all the information outside the borders. And use the vignette option here in the lens correction. Okay. This might be a bit too strong, so I'm gonna copy it. Actually, no need to copy. We can show the layer and delete some of the areas here. Actually, let's use the layer mask. So create a mask for this layer, and using a black brush we can paint over the areas we don't want to see. So for example, I paint over here and it brings out the lower layer and hides everything on this layer here. Right. Like that. Very simple. I think I'm not too happy about the color of the sky. It's a bit too yellowish. So I'm gonna merge down. I'm gonna select my alpha, duplicate it, and now when I change the lower layer, you'll notice that only the sky is changing and everything else stays the same. Okay. Maybe a little less saturation. Right. Okay. Merge down. Let's duplicate the layer. Make it a bit brighter. And blur it. I'm gonna blend it as a soft light. This brings the overall contrast of the image a bit up, makes the colors brighter, and gives a sort of a soft glow to the whole image. Okay. And merge down. Okay. And finally, let's try the auto contrast. I think this looks pretty nice. Let's save it. And if you compare it to what we started with, I think it's a nice improvement. Maybe just make it slightly warmer. Right. Okay, let's move on to this cloudy version here. Duplicate the layer and use the curves to bring up the contrast. Right. Let's go to Google image search and search for some cloudy sky images. Okay. Actually, I want to find something gray, but with clearly visible clouds. Okay. Let's set the size to large, or larger than 2 megapixels. And let's see. Right, I want to try this one here. Copy the image, go to Photoshop, and paste. So let's make it smaller, maybe flatten it a bit. And let's use the same trick with alpha channel to duplicate this house here. Looks like we need to make our sky a bit brighter. Right, and maybe a bit less saturated. Nice and gray. Okay. You can notice some weird little borders here around the leaves and around the house. That's because our original background was quite light and these clouds are a bit too dark. So we can make the clouds lighter. And we also can, okay, so select this layer by control clicking on the image here. And you can reduce the size of the selection slightly. Let's use 1 pixel. Okay. And now when you invert your selection with Ctrl+Shift+I and delete it, the borders are gone. I guess that's a bit too much. Okay, so in this particular case, we should just find a different cloud image. I'm gonna look for gray clouds. Okay. Let's try the first one here. Let's make it a bit brighter. I think that's okay. Maybe let's darken this top region here. I'm gonna use the burn tool. Right. And let's merge these together. Okay. Now we can try using color balance to make the shadows warmer and the highlights a bit colder. Right. I'm gonna blend this layer at 50%, merge down. Duplicate and try the color balance again. And let's try some vignetting. Actually, I'm not gonna use the lens correction for this. I'm gonna create a new layer and paint with a black brush. Over the areas I want to darken slightly. Like that. And I'm gonna blur this whole layer with a pretty large radius. Maybe like that. Right, and now just reduce the opacity. Something like 20 or 30. Okay. So nice bright greens on this cloudy day. You can use the burn tool and dodge tool to bring out some more details. For example, I'm gonna slightly lighten this here. Perhaps let's make the flowers a bit brighter. All right. Okay, so merge the layers down, duplicate, use the high pass filter for sharpening, set it to soft light, merge down, and save. I think that's okay. Let's compare to original rendering. Flat and boring. Much more interesting here. Okay, so the last image, the night rendering. So as usual, duplicate the layer and using the curves tool, bring up the contrast. Okay, I'm going to create a new layer and paint over with some black brush. Make the upper part of sky a bit darker. And blur it quite a bit, like that. So now, using the alpha channel, I'm going to duplicate everything except the sky. Right, and I'm going to change the blending mode for my dark overpaint. So let's try soft light. Okay. Duplicate the black part, move up on the layer stack and reduce the opacity. Like that. And I want to make the sky slightly less intense. So I'm using the hue saturation here to bring down the saturation. Maybe let's play around with curves a bit. To give it some more contrast. Okay. Looks nice. So next, I'm going to select my highlights. So select color range. Okay, first let's merge these together. And I'm going to select the color range and shift click on these highlights here. Right. Using the lasso tool, I'm gonna deselect the path and the path lights. I want to leave just the windows in my selection. Well, more or less. Right. Press Ctrl J to duplicate them. Maybe let's make them a bit brighter. And let's blur them. Right, like that. Let's try to use the soft light blending mode. And you can see some nice soft glow coming from the inside of the building. Okay. Right, let's create a new adjustment layer. Curves, okay. I want to give some more contrast to this front area here. Maybe like that. And using the gradient tool with black and white, I can change which areas of the adjustment layer are visible and which are not. So, for example, I want this to be visible only on the lower part, so I paint my gradient like this. Okay, copy everything, paste. And let's use the soft light mode for this one here. I'm gonna blur it slightly. And try it at 30%. Looks okay. Merge down, duplicate. I'm gonna go ahead and brighten these areas around the path with my dodge tool. Right, let's try to bring up the highlights a bit for the flowers. Now select this rectangular area here on the lower part. Okay. And using the color range selection tool, I'm going to select the bright path lights. Alright, and duplicate and blur. Okay, so I'm gonna blur it slightly, like that. I'm gonna duplicate again, and I'm gonna blur some more. So this gives it a small, more visible highlight around the edges here. Okay. Small glow plus large and weaker glow. Let's make this small one a bit weaker. Let's try it at 40. Maybe 50. And duplicate the large glow to make it stronger. Alright, so I'm gonna merge this down. Create a new layer, and with the brush tool I'm gonna paint some darker areas here. Okay. Blur it. And set at 30%. Alright, merge down. Try auto contrast. And with curves, bring the brightness back slightly. Like that. So I think that's it. Looks pretty good. Just sharpen it slightly in the high pass. And there you have it. Our post-produced version and the original. Okay, and finally one last trick to make it even better. I'm going to go to 3D Max. You can open any of your final scenes, doesn't matter if it's the daylight version or the night render. Okay, and create a new V-Ray material. We're going to render out a Z-depth pass. Right, so open up the rendering settings, go to V-Ray tab, let's turn off the lights, displacement, let's turn on the override material, here it is. I'm gonna drag and drop this regular V-Ray material here, make an instance, just so we can get a very fast render. Right, and turn off the indirect illumination as well. And I think we can try and render out our Z-depth. So first I'm gonna add a render element. Here it is, V-Ray Z-depth. Okay. I'm gonna turn it on. And now we need to set up our minimum and maximum values for the Z-depth. So let's start it at 0 centimeters and let's end it at, let's say, 50 meters. Okay, let's set 100 meters. And let's try and render it to see how it looks. Okay, we can actually reduce the settings a bit. Doesn't need to be as crisp and nice as our final renders. Okay. I'm gonna turn off the output for this one and render it. So you can see it renders pretty fast. And if you change here from RGB color to V-Ray Z-depth, you will see how our Z-depth result looks. Perhaps we need to increase the maximum value a bit. I'm gonna cancel this. And let's change the max amount to 200 meters. Re-render, and this should be okay. Alright, so the rendering has finished. We can save this image. I'm gonna save it as zdef png. No need for alpha channel here, just save it. Alright, and go to Photoshop. Okay, so let's open up our zdef image, and I'm gonna invert it. Why? Because I want to use it to make the background or the further away areas lighter here, maybe a bit more blue here, and lighter as well, and darker here. So I'm going to invert this image, and I'm going to use it as a mask. So I'm also going to bring up the contrast, so only the furthest areas are light, like that. Okay, I'm going to select everything and copy it. So now let's start with this sunny day rendering, and let's duplicate the layer using the alpha channel. So control click on alpha here, go back to layers, press Ctrl J to duplicate it. So now you have duplicated everything except the sky. So we're gonna make it a bit brighter, like that, maybe a bit less saturated, and let's try a color filter and make it more blue. Just cool it like that. Right? So this is how I want my image to look, far away in the background. And now we can assign a layer mask. Right? Go to channels, open it up, and paste. Okay, turn this off. And you can see the effect going on here. So with this new layer and without. Just a subtle lightening and slight haze in the background. Maybe make it brighter. Like that. Right. You can also adjust the contrast of your zdef to see the changes. So you can bring the haze closer to you, or you can move it further. Just by adjusting the levels. Right, I'm gonna leave this one like this. Let's move on to overcast render. Do the same thing, duplicate the layer using the alpha. Right, maybe let's make it brighter and a bit less saturated. Create a mask, go to channels, and paste your zdef. I'm gonna make it a bit brighter. And play around with the levels. Maybe it's too strong, you can also change the opacity to make it weaker. Like that. And finally our night render. Okay, first duplicate. Let's make it darker. And maybe more blue. Like that. Okay. And paste the zdef here. Right, maybe make it even more dark. Right, so I think this will be fine. Merge down. Okay, I also noticed a little problem here. The sky is shining through the trees. I don't really like that. I want to make it darker. So I'm gonna duplicate the layer again and paint over this lower layer here with a dark brush. Just close these little shining gaps here. Alright, and merge down, and you're done. Okay, so here's our final night render, here's the overcast render, and here's the sunny render. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and see you next time.